Welcome, one and all, to another day, another week here at the Damage Report. It is Fantastic Mondays with me, John DeRolla, and Francesca Fiorentini. Francesca, how's it going?
What up? I'm good.
I'm glad that you're good. I know that you're exercising right now as we do this. Yeah, but I can make it look like I'm just on a seat. It's not as cool. It's not as cool.
I give myself 45 minutes. I don't know how long I'm gonna last on a yoga ball as I'm bouncing, talking about the news. If I get extra excited, I'll just be doing that.
You know, I think what our show has always been lacking is suspense. The idea that at some point you're just going to roll backwards off of a ball. I think that gives people something to look forward to.
Absolutely. It should just be a block of ice that gets smaller and smaller. It's a statement on climate change.
It's deep, and how dare you? Anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. We had some kind of weekend. The Turning Points people had another one of their little, I'll say rally. That has the correct connotations, I think. And we're gonna be diving into that in just a little bit. Updates on the January 6th committee. Remember, there will be more hearings. It's gonna take a little bit for us to get there, but God only knows what'll come about before then. And let's see, we've got a robot block, good robot, bad robot. We're gonna figure out which is which. And a nice little climate change block. Remember ICE? Anyway, we've got a lot more besides that. So along the way, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, that would be great so that everybody gets their notifications, knows we're live and all of that. And if you wanna send us any comments, tweets, super chats, or anything else, you can do that and we'll respond as we go. But with all that said, Francesca, are you ready to start the show?
Let's rock.
Okay, let's rock and let's lightly bounce as we do this.
Yeah.
Starting with this.
Is your committee planning on talking to Ginni Thomas, even though her lawyer has expressed a reluctance to cooperate?
We are. The committee is engaged with her counsel. We certainly hope that she will agree to come in voluntarily, but the committee is fully prepared to contemplate a subpoena if she does not. I hope it doesn't get to that. I hope she will come in voluntarily. We've certainly spoken with numbers of people who are similarly situated in terms of the discussions that she was having that you've mentioned. So it's very important for us to speak with her. And as I said, I hope she will agree to do so voluntarily, but I'm sure we will contemplate a subpoena if she won't.
So Ginni Thomas, not necessarily interested in cooperating because that's apparently how it works for people like Ginni Thomas. If you're, wife of a Supreme Court justice, cooperating with Congress is optional, I guess. Steve Bannon recently found out that no, not necessarily so optional. He's facing charges and all that. But Ginni Thomas might be brought in now. Why? Well, she was communicating with basically everyone in the scheme to undo the results of the election. She potentially talked with Clarence Thomas, who did take part in one Supreme Court decision that involved the release of documents that might have hurt the Trump effort, might have made it look bad. We might have learned something from that. So there are some reasons to want to bring her in, although as they say there, she might not want to cooperate. And although they've given subpoenas to people like Steve Bannon, they haven't done it with all of the people who've refused to come in, Francesca. So it'll be interesting to see if the Steve Bannon successfully being charged, if that's going to, I don't know, maybe give them a little bit more incentive or a little bit more confidence that if they put forward a subpoena, something will actually come from it.
I mean, I feel like it's the beginning of a little meet cute, like a little rom-com between Ginni and Bannon. They're both there for 30 days. JK, 15 days. JK, they just had to pick up some trash on the side of the road for being in contempt of Congress. And then they fall in love with each other. And then, Clarence is like, phew, bullet dodged. It's just gonna be very exciting. I don't think Ginni Thomas is going to testify. There's just no way that she's going to open herself to actually discussing what the Kraken means in her mind. And all of the other crazy conspiracies that she's going to be, that she had spewed in the days leading up to January 6th. I think what's likely, I don't think she can testify, but I also don't think they're gonna hold her in contempt. So I feel like we're gonna be in this limbo for a while. When she absolutely should be held in contempt, when she absolutely should be made to testify. And by the way, that don't release the documents relating to January 6th that Clarence Thomas voted against, he was in the minority position, which is even funnier because you're like, oh, you legit have someone to protect, like directly someone to protect. And this is not even like a go along. Yeah, everyone doesn't want to release these documents. Executive privilege doesn't matter. No, there's a motive. He should be impeached. Anyway, are we there yet? Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're not there yet, unfortunately. Yeah, so look, you don't believe that they're gonna do the subpoena, or if she does, there's not gonna be, DOJ won't be dispatched. Oh, but no follow-up from the DOJ when she refuses to comply. Yeah, that's possible. I wanna dive for just a second into hypothetical future. So let's say that she does testify. Our knee-jerk reaction would be, that's a good thing, right? In the same way that I guess we would want Steve Bannon to testify. I mean, these are people who were involved in different ways, obviously. And Ginni Thomas, like Steve Bannon, I'm worried about all the ways he was involved in all the ways that we've found out about. For Ginni Thomas, most of what she's tried to do, I feel like, and we'll get into the text messages, the reaction from a lot of those people is probably like, when you get like tagged in a Facebook post by your crazy uncle about what's really going on Mars. I feel like most of them probably didn't believe or take seriously the things she was saying because she's out of her goddamn mind. So for me, let's say that she does testify. What does that even look like? Is it just her doing like a parody of Alex Jones? Like what? She's so deluded. She believes every crazy thing, not just every single crazy thing. She believes it. So what would be the objective of having her testify? Do we think we could trust anything that she says? Do we think that anything she says has any merit, is attached to reality in any way?
I mean, I think if she did testify, we'd see something akin to the Kavanaugh hearing, and like basically the Kavanaugh hearing when he was confirmed. Less beer, perhaps. Maybe. Who knows how Ginny gets down? A lot of sherry, less beer. The reason I say that is because it'd be throwing her former self under the bus. Meaning Kavanaugh's not gonna own up to like being a rapey jock in high school and college, right? Ginni Thomas is not gonna own up to being an utter crackpot. So she'll be like, oh, the Kraken. See, we just watched the Pirates of the Caribbean, and if you've seen it, like Justice for Johnny. The second episode is all about, like it'd be this whole thing about like, no, I don't believe, because at this point, everyone who has testified, who is part of the Trump team and or part of them, even MAGA folks, has said, yeah, no, we were lied to. I knew that the election results were what they were, and Biden legitimately won. Yeah. And the only person who hasn't is Steve Bannon, right? And he's, I don't think, gonna testify. And so what's Ginni gonna do? Is Ginni gonna choose the Bannon side of the sand, or is Ginni gonna choose everybody else? And then the real question is, I mean, you could even just ask her like, hey, how often do you talk to your husband every day? Oh no, we don't even who? What? That old like loon? Like no, it'd be how much contact you have with your husband. That to me is the most interesting, is how much, obviously, from everything I've read, they're joined at the hip, right? Like they don't do anything separate.
Anyway, look, for me, I think having them testify can mean multiple things. Do you have them testify behind closed doors? Do you have them testify live on? I think having either of them testify live, they will use it as an opportunity to shout out crazy lies. I think that's what it will be, an attempt to just say that the election was. That's where I kind of disagree with you about Ginni Thomas, that she would backtrack a ton. Maybe her lawyers would be able to get through to her and tell her that, look, you saying what you really believe could be really damaging to your husband and all that. But she's a true believer. Like we'll get into some of the text. Like, would she want to tell all of her, all the people she agrees with that it was fake, that she didn't really believe it? Some of these people, that's their community. I'm not sure that they're gonna publicly denounce them by denouncing those beliefs.
Sure.
I'm not
sure. All her QAnon Facebook friends are like, do it, Ginny. We got you. I'm under a bridge in Dallas, Texas, drinking weird things out of vats. we got you, Ginny. Like literally, you might be
but
right.
no vaccines for me. Yeah, 100%. Well, let's dive into what we might be able to learn. So if Ginni Thomas is actually subpoenaed, and let's say that she either decides to comply, which she's indicated she won't, or that they actually sick Merrick Garland on her as they did with Steve Bannon, and maybe she actually does come and testify. Well, what can we learn about? Well, a few different things. One, we know that she was sending text messages throughout November, December, and January to basically all of the people involved in the attempt to overturn the election. The first of 29 messages, this is just between her and Mark Meadows, was sent 2 days after the election. She sent him a link to a YouTube video titled "Trump Sting with CIA Director, the biggest election story in history, QFS blockchain." Oh, well, if it's on the blockchain, then there's clearly something to it. So this gives you an idea of what she was doing in those days. The video she shared with him is no longer available on YouTube, but Thomas wrote to Meadows, "I hope this is true. Never heard anything like this before, or even a hint of it. Possible?" And who among us hasn't gotten text messages like this? Perhaps from someone you went to high school with who has changed since then. And that's who she is. Now, when a few more days go by, about a week, November 10th, news organizations are predicting that Joe Biden's the winner based on state vote totals. And more of the country is accepting that that's the way the election actually went. Thomas wrote to Meadows, "Help this great president stand firm, Mark," with 3 exclamation points. "You are the leader with him who is standing for America's constitutional governance at the precipice. The majority knows Biden and the capital L left is attempting the greatest capital H heist of our capital H history." So it's serious, non-deranged stuff. These are the text messages you send to people in the White House and all of that. Meadows wrote to Thomas a couple weeks later, said this is a fight of good versus evil. This is him writing to her. He apparently knows the sort of language to use with her. "Evil always looks like the victor until the King of Kings triumphs. Do not grow weary in well-doing. The fight continues. I have staked my career on it. Well, at least my time in DC on it." And Ginni Thomas responds, "Thank you, needed that. This plus a conversation with my best friend just now. I will hold, we'll get back to that. I will try to keep holding on. America's worth it." Who's her best friend now? Yes, I know that man's best friend is a dog. It's why I brought 2 to the studio right now. But she and her husband have always described each other as best friends. So all of this King of Kings will win out over the great evil of democracy stuff, she was apparently reassured by conversations she was having with Clarence Thomas on November 24th, Francesca. That is interesting stuff.
I really want her to testify.
Now you're more.
Now I really want her to. I still don't think it's gonna happen, but I think it is incredibly damning. We all know who her best friend is. Obviously, yes, it is Clarence Thomas. Impeach this man. And the other thing is, Mark Meadows hasn't testified. So these are big missing pieces. Mark Meadows is probably one of the biggest missing pieces in terms of all these testimonies. And then Ginni Thomas, and then of course, Bannon pretty much said the quiet part out loud. Like we know it, we get it. We get what you're going to say. You said it, we've got those leaked tapes and all that. I really hate Liz Cheney for so many reasons. And
what are you talking about? She's our hero. I stan a queen. Sorry, I was just reading everything that I've read on Twitter.
Yes, but I do think that if she is going down, which she might be in Wyoming, I love that this might be her like Angela Bassett moment of like throwing the match behind her and like the car explodes, waiting to exhale, whatever.
I do get that reference.
Or is it how Stella got her groove back? I don't know, guys. Where is that meme from? The point is, it must be both. The point is, Angela Bassett just like walking away from the flames. And so I think that I would get some cathartic satisfaction out of seeing Liz Cheney grill Ginni Thomas. Because you can't really run from, that's a pretty damning tweet. Tweets.
The last text message about talking with Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
And again, like, we always wonder with these people, to what extent is it lying? To what extent is it crazy? Or both? With her, I think it's crazy. I don't think that, because she's sending those messages to Mark Meadows. She doesn't need to lie to Mark Meadows. Mark Meadows is involved in the plot to end American democracy. Like, I think she's like Marjorie Greene. She's one of those people that, like, no, when they're posting that stuff on Facebook, they really mean it. They mean it as much as you mean anything. So I guess bring her forward.
Ginni doesn't want to be Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do you know what I mean? Ginni doesn't want to be Lauren Boebert. Ginni wants to be behind the scenes, pulling the strings on Clarence Thomas's, robe. That's, but that's what she wants to be doing. So it is interesting to see, like, in the light of day, how does the QAnon mom behave? Will she own up to the crazy, or will she disown the crazy and again join the side of reality?
Yeah, no, she's falling crazy. Be careful, by the way, when you pull Clarence Thomas's robe strings. It can open up unexpectedly. Anyway, also, dude, no pants on the bench. That's his right. He's a Supreme Court justice. Now, really fast, I want to ask you a question about another sort of testifying. It's not going to happen. This is purely speculative, just for fun. It's a Monday. We're having fun. It would seem like you'd want Ginni Thomas and you'd want Mark Meadows and you'd want all these people who were involved in it. It also seems like you should probably have like Pence and Trump. Like, Trump is the guy who did it. If there was a thing that was done, he was the guy that did it. And I mean, look, he's, I would assume, not gonna do it even if they asked him. And they've shown no interest in bringing him forward. And admittedly, there is a risk to doing that, similar to what we were talking about before with Ginni Thomas. So I would ask you, if there were three possibilities, what would you do were you to be Liz Cheney? Don't ask Trump, ask him to testify behind closed doors and possibly release some video from it, or have him testify prime time, live, being broadcast on C-SPAN. What would you do?
I think the best thing for them to do is to interview him not live, for sure, pre-recorded.
Why specifically would you not want it live?
Because he's a grandstander and he knows that he has an audience. If they are all, if he's going to be live, he can say whatever the hell he wants. He has full control. They can't edit it out in the moment. There won't be any agreed upon thing he's going to say or questions. And so, yeah, it'll just be essentially what we saw with him debating Joe Biden. Yeah. Constant interrupting and just creating his own reality out of whole cloth. But if you get him off, I'm like hidden camera. We've gotten that. I guess that didn't work either, did it? We've gotten so many hidden camera moments for Donald Trump. But yeah, no, I think if you did subpoena him and you interviewed him and not live, that would be the best.
Yeah, look, I agree with you that I think he would totally grandstand and he wouldn't. So he would go in intending to provide no information, of course. He doesn't care about the fact whether he was under oath or whether there could be any perjury. Like, I don't think there would be anyway, but even if there were, he wouldn't care. The only upside to that is that lots of people would tune in, and we want people to, although it could be hijacked. But he is kind of like, what's the movie with Tom Cruise and he's the lawyer for the Air Force? The courtroom drama. You can't handle the truth.
Yeah. I didn't see it.
Oh, okay. Well, I only saw it recently, actually. That movie, A Few Good Men. Thank you, audience. That climax always bothered me because, thank you, Marisa. That climax always bothered me because, like, come on, he's just gonna start blurting out stuff. Maybe. You know who would do that though? Trump. He loves blurting out stuff. So there might be some upside. But the other thing is, and maybe this is a self-destructive impulse that I'm feeling. Does it not bother you that he doesn't have to testify about any of this stuff? And I don't just mean here that he's cruised for a year and a half since all of what he did. January 6th is the part we focus on, but there was so much that was so awful. But he didn't even have to talk to Mueller. Remember, he only did a few he wrote responses to a few questions. That's it. For all of what happened in all of that for multiple years. So he can do all of this stuff and he never suffers any consequences. Steve Bannon, we were joking earlier about how few days he might spend in prison for, openly defying the subpoena. That will be more consequences than Trump has for all of it. for more than a half decade of criminal acts, obstruction of justice, all of that stuff, witness tampering, and he'll never have to actually sit down and be asked tough questions. That just bothers me so much. What about you?
Yeah, we live in a country where you can allegedly attempt to use a fake $20 bill and die at the hands of a police officer, where you can play with a toy gun in your own yard and die at the hands of a police officer, where you can peacefully protest for your civil rights and be arrested and thrown to the ground and tear gassed. And yet a sitting president, a former president of the United States of America can attempt to overturn an election and sic a giant mob on a Capitol building, including his own fellow lawmakers, and nothing happens.
Yep.
Amazing.
I know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Well, I don't know, maybe at the very least we'll get Ginni Thomas. And I've never really seen her. Maybe people have, maybe I just missed it. I've never seen her like live interviewed, hostile, like, or even non-friendly interview. God, imagine the stuff that she would say, that she might reveal about Clarence Thomas. Just think about it. A lot of this is about getting them to say things, about realizing what you're trying to get them to say. It's about outwitting them.
Right.
And few people seem as outwittable as Ginni Thomas. She's so crazy. Anyway,
I don't know
about
that.
We'll see. No?
I think
Okay.
I think she outwits Clarence Thomas, but I think that's a low bar.
Yeah, I don't think he cares.
He doesn't care.
I think he gave up. He's been on the senior slump for like 25 years. Anyway, with that said, we do need to take our first break. When we come back, we're gonna be moving into our Monday Menace and other assorted, don't swear, bad peoplery. I'm just gonna say that. We'll be back with that after this.
I don't know how to take that. If you're a nasty hoe and you tell me like my makeup, I'm like, oh my God.
It's still intent. It's the intent that counts, I guess.
We reclaim hoedom.
We do.
I called you a hoe on the top 10 list the other day.
I don't remember why, but I'm not surprised.
Neither do I.
Oh, we do have a top 10 list we're gonna be recording today. So every Monday, if you don't already know, for our tier 2 and tier 3 members, we upload a special video that Francesca and I record, a little top 10 list, sometimes political, sometimes not. Today, it's a combination for me. It is the top 10 sayings that people use that we think are BS or that we hate for various reasons. And I had a lot of fun choosing these. I could definitely see this being something we could do multiple times. Anyway, become a tier 2 or tier 3 member and you'll get access to that. That said, let's get back into the news with this.
Have you watched these pro-abortion, pro-murder rallies? The people are just disgusting. Like, why is it that the women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions? Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb.
So that's Matt Gaetz in the video next to me, just in case. Just to really clarify who Matt Gaetz is, let's go to this first picture. This is Representative Matt Gaetz, a guy who it should really be up to him whether you're hot enough to be human and deserve rights or empathy or whatever. He's the guy that's just blatantly stealing and misusing a George Carlin joke to be funny in front of a group of the lamest young right-wingers of the country. But anyway, he believes that some of the people who think that they should have bodily autonomy aren't hot enough to deserve it. And he has more on this. Take a look.
These people are odious on the inside and out. They're like 5'2", 350 pounds, and they're like, give me my abortions or I'll get up and march and protest. And I'm thinking, march? You look like you got ankles weaker than the legal reasoning behind Roe versus Wade. A few of them need to get up and march. They need to get up and march for like an hour a day, swing those arms, get the blood pumping, maybe mix in a salad.
Ugh.
I mean, look, this is the path they're gonna take. Matt Gaetz considers himself a big up and comer for the right. They want to presumably win elections. Now they know they've got a stranglehold on the process, your ability to vote and all that. But they have now told people, you don't deserve to have control of your bodies. We get to do that. We determine what you can do with your bodies or not. Oh, and then also insult to injury. You're all so fat that I hate you. I hate you and have no respect for you. I can't. There's a crowd of people in front of him. Not all of them probably supermodels in overall appearance or figure. I wonder what they thought about this guy they were so excited to see come and speak to them, telling them that they don't deserve basic human decency or empathy if they haven't done enough cardio recently for the guy who, I'll remind you, is most notable for the fact that he's being investigated to find out if he paid for sex, had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old, and whether he paid for women to travel across state lines to have sex, which would violate sex trafficking laws. Worst case scenario is that all of that is true and likely more. Best case scenario is that they can't necessarily prove that, but he's got one of the shadiest Venmo histories ever. But that's the guy, Francesca. Matt Gaetz thinks that women's rights, people who can get pregnant, their rights, apparently should be determined by whether or not he thinks they're sexy.
I'm really excited for him to get hauled away by the cops going like, but at least she was hot. You know how like when a pedophile says like at least they were hot, you're like totes. Gross. No, you watch that and you're like, this is the most on brand Turning Points USA MAGA thing ever. MAGA is 11 to 13-year-old cis white, like hetero little boy angst, having never done it, mad at girls, like shopping for guns on like mass shooter energy, sorry, turns to white supremacy out of quote boredom, which I believe one of our most recent mass shooters talked about, the Buffalo shooter. Like that is the id of MAGA. At its heart, that's what MAGA is. And they get older, they get all grown up, and then they get some money, and then they're able to, like have a little boat and maybe a bunch of tactical gear that they got off Amazon, and they like think they're really tough. But that small little 13-year-old virgin energy, no offense, that's to virgins, you know what I'm saying? That's their id. That is their, I hate girls are gross, ew. That is what they are. And that's what Matt Gaetz is right there. And yeah, there were probably some people who didn't fit the mold in the audience, but guess what? They don't believe in abortion rights. So they're like, if there was a girl in there who was like, oh my God, you're right. I am 350 and I don't deserve to live. I don't, yay. I love this movement for me. It is a movement
Stockholm
of
syndrome.
Yes, it is utter self-hatred. And yet there you go, man. These are your people. I know you think Trump looks like an adult. He's not. He is a child.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is I think that 13-year-old energy that you talked about there of the, they're gross, rapidly becomes the like, I want them and I can't have them and I'll do anything to anybody because of it. And that's Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, I'm sure, has had sex several times since then, but he still has that energy. That's who he is. He's a guy who despises women for whatever reason. I'm being charitable by saying that it's a result of his teenage years. God only knows why he hates women so much, but he does. And so if you're a woman, if you're a conservative woman, you're in a difficult position. It's a position that you're not alone in. I recently saw it was the Log Cabin Republicans of Texas saying, I mean, we tried to show all of you that we're part of you, and now you're attacking us. Yeah, that's who they actually are, and it's not just against the Log Cabin Republicans. They hate so many groups of you. We're gonna see more of that with Marjorie Greene.
Pickup artist politics, you guys. It's pure misogyny. It's the "did you fall from heaven" line didn't work at a bar, or did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Whatever the hell, like if that didn't work. I hate women. I'm gonna take away all their rights. Like, no, dude. It's just because you're corny AF doesn't mean we don't deserve human rights.
Matt Gaetz, fresh off of his conference speech where he says that only, I guess, hot women deserve to have control over their bodies or something. I don't know. He decided that's too general, that's too broad. I need to be targeting individual women that I disagree with. And so he tweeted this. A Newsmax article saying that his rant had raised the dander of his political opponents. He decided to say dander raised and put a photo of one individual, Olivia Juliana. But do you get what he's doing there? He's saying that because he didn't find this one activist, this one, from her own words, a survivor of sexual assault, since he doesn't find her sexy enough, it's an example of what he's saying. They don't deserve rights because I don't want to have sex with them right now. That's what a sitting congressman decided to do. To target one individual activist as not giving him an erection and thus she doesn't deserve rights. Thankfully.
Don't say erection in a Matt Gaetz story, I beg of you.
That's what it is. That's what it is. This is the Jordan Peterson thing.
True.
Like the idea, the implicit idea that we only value people for their physical appearance is not enough. I'm gonna make it super explicit for you, they say. So she responded, tweeting, "I'm sorry. You're 5'7". Now look, that's I love me short men too. So they were caught in the crossfire there, but I get that she's mad.
Short kings.
And yes, she goes on to say, "Am I not a little too old for you, Matt? I know you have a thing for targeting teenagers, but 19 is on the cusp, don't you think?"
Amazing.
And I can only imagine the hate that must be flooding towards her. And so for her to even load up Twitter, considering that a national figure decided to make her sexiness a political debate, that is such an inherently disgusting thing for Matt Gaetz to do. Top 5 most disgusting things he's ever done. So the fact that she can even go on social media is impressive, but to clap back at him like that, it just makes me so happy. She's my new favorite person.
Yeah, and if you have the stomach and the bandwidth and the time, I would say support her and retweet that and dunk on the haters. I think that a lot of people don't stick their necks out. A lot of people don't clap back because they're not sure whether they'll get support for doing so. Because we know there's way more right-wing trolls than there are people who actually have jobs and have stuff to do than just troll people online. Also, we don't do that as much. But anyway, I would just say to support her because that's amazing.
100%. I want to raise just one other point coming off this Matt Gaetz thing. Do you remember when Hillary Clinton, who admittedly I'm not a big fan of, remember when she referred to the Trump supporters as deplorables? Ugh. And the right fainted away onto a couch designed for that purpose. How could you say that we're deplorable? How could you imply that there's something wrong with us? We who cheer when Mexicans are labeled rapists and murderers. How could you say that we're awful? They're not hot. They don't deserve rights. That's a good one, Congressman. That is real funny. I love it. Can you start targeting individuals? Can you attack them individually as not being sexy enough? That's awesome, but don't call us deplorables. We're not bad people. That's not core to our goddamn identity that we're awful, that we thrive on the even inaccurately perceived pain of those we've been taught to hate and fear. We're not deplorable though. But yes, tell me more about the individual Americans that you don't want to sleep with. Freaking amazing. The state of the Republican Party. It's not just him though. We're gonna move on to our C block. I apologize. I did wake up this morning feeling a little bit weird. I hate these people so much and I want them to go away. And it's not just that they're here. It's that I know worse is coming. This is the vanguard for the crazies. Matt Gaetz isn't good enough for these people. You think that's acceptable? Ted Cruz is long-term acceptable for these people? No, there's gonna be worse and it's coming soon.
What do you think is the primary focus of the GOP going into 2022? What should it be opposed to what it isn't? Wow, that's a tough question because there's a lot of things that should be. I think Republicans really need to recognize the people they represent. Okay, their voters, not the lobbyist donors, not the corporate PACs, not those people. That's not who the Republican Party should represent. We need to be the party of nationalism, and I'm a Christian, and I say it proudly. We should be Christian nationalists. And when Republicans learn to represent most of the people that vote for them, then we will be the party that continues to grow without having to chase down certain identities or chase down, certain segments of people. We just need to represent Americans, and most Americans, no matter how they vote, really care about the same things.
Okay, so to be clear, the right wing, on the one hand, against identity politics when it's certain identities. She's certain identity. Now, of course, she's supposed to be bold and brave. She's an alpha female on the right. She's not going to tell you which identities she thinks they're wasting time trying to track down. But certain identities we don't want to, because that would be identity politics, and that they're against. Instead, they should be Christian nationalists, which seems kind of like an identity to me. Those are the good Americans. Those are just Americans. Everyone else, presumably not Americans. Waste of time. Stop trying to get them to vote for you. Mm-hmm. But Christian nationalists, and I can hear the white. She won't say the white right there, but we know who she hangs out with, Francesca. She's being honest, to her credit. That is more open and honest about what most of them want their party to be than most of them are willing to say.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're like, oh, good job, girl, because y'all are doing that. You did it. Yay. Remember when the RNC issued a memo that was like, God, we really need to reach out to Black and Latino voters, and the fastest growing bloc in the United States is Asian Americans. We really don't have a platform that reaches out to them. Hey, maybe post Romney's loss, we should pivot and just sort of embrace and understand that we have a very diverse country. And then they just did it. And then they were like, nah, what if we just double down on white nationalism? We like that, we like it. And yeah, that's how you got Trump. And amazing, it's actually not, honestly, surprisingly, worked out pretty well when you just take away the dog whistle and they're just, saying the quiet part out loud. I do think that it is interesting that Christian nationalism, which is what we've all been saying, is now something she's saying, and also sounds a lot like, I don't know, like a nationalist, like a national socialist party. I don't know.
Well, not socialist.
Not socialist.
But to be fair, neither were they.
Neither were they. But he had the right ideas, except for that socialist stuff. But I guess once you don't have the other identities to worry about, I would be for socialism, right? And that's all he wanted to do, Mr. Adolf, and worked out okay. That is the natural conclusion. I'm sorry, that is right-wing populism. It's, oh yeah, we want universal health care, but not for people of color.
Oh, definitely. No. If we were if I was the tannest person in America, everybody would be getting stuff for free, handed out and all that. That much is clear. And look, obviously Francesca is going way too far, and it's a shame that she would do that. But let's be clear. Who's not included in Christian nationalists? So we can opine that she means don't waste time trying to get Black voters, Latinx voters, anything like that, LGBT, whatever. But who's definitely not a part of Christian nationalism? Non-Christians. And I get that me as an atheist, she doesn't care if someone like me is left out. But don't they ostensibly want Jewish Americans to vote for them? They say that they want that.
No.
Let alone, there's lots of other religions that maybe they don't talk about as much, but in theory, they want them to vote. No, she explicitly wants Jewish Americans pushed out of the Republican Big Ten. And that's not really news, I guess. We know that she's said many deeply anti-Semitic things, but her name isn't Ilhan Omar, so it'll almost never make news.
Yep.
But this seems pretty big that she wants, by definition, for them to not be included.
Well, they can be included, but a third of them can assimilate and convert to Christianity when the rapture happens, and then 2/3 of them will die. And so that, we like them for strategic purposes for Israel. But that's the follow-up. I mean, it's just so funny. You're so Yeah, do Jewish Americans play a role in the Republican Party?
I guess not.
I mean, I literally wonder what her answer would be.
Yeah, love it. Anyway, super fast. She's like, we should be doing blah, blah, blah. We shouldn't be like Cowtown and lobbyists. I brought her up on Open Secrets. She raises tons of money from lobbyists. It's all right-wing populism. It's such a lie. How do people not get that?
Such a lie.
Finance, manufacturing, lawyers, air transport, education, special trade contractors, automotive, construction services, business services, crop production and basic processing. She accepts money from all of it. From individuals, from the PACs.
CrossFit.
And also the CrossFitters and probably some NFTs. Anyway, yeah, that's your Marjorie Greene. She said a bunch of other stuff, but I can only take so much on a Monday. So that's where we're gonna have to leave it for her, the Christian nationalism. Okay, Yeetwood, I think that's where it's coming from, I think. Anyway, with that said, let's jump back into our news, starting with this story. Florida has decided to just completely dispense with sex ed. I know it seems crazy, but that is the path that they're on. They had just reversed a decision to adopt a new sex education textbook that would have been used for the 22 to 23 school year. It leaves the district with no sexual education curriculum for at least 4 to 8 months, okay? That means that students in this year will not receive the specific unit of study, which is required by the state technically, but they're not gonna do it anyway. Classes that include the unit or lesson plans will have to skip discussions entirely until the board adopts a curriculum. Now, what do you lose when you don't have sex ed for 4 to 8 months? Well, textbooks cover pregnancy prevention, understanding sexuality and sexually transmitted infections, drugs and alcohol, and relationships. In April, the board approved middle school and high school versions of the comprehensive health skills textbook. The decision was met with petitions from opponents, prompting a hearing in June to assess the petitions. Now, if you sort of recall, all of this is over, oh no, they're acknowledging that straight and cis people aren't the only people. And so for that, they decided that, and CRT, they decided to reject tons of textbooks that were perfectly fine. In fact, probably conservative in the way they approached much of this stuff. Finally, they did find some books they found acceptable, but even that has now been overturned, Francesca. So Florida schools have reached, I think, the inevitable stopping point of we're just not having books and lessons anymore.
I mean, I have to wonder how good their sex ed was beforehand, because I mean, granted, it was years and years ago, but like sex ed in public schools in California were not good when I was going to school. They were like, there was like 2 classes 10 years apart, and you were like, wait a minute, what? Girls have these parts and boys have chlamydia. What the hell? It was like, anyway, the point is we could all get some better sex ed, but it's okay, John, because like kids will just go, they have, Professor Google. Just go online and type in sex. And Bing, you'll get everything, not actually Bing, because it's Google, of course. Bing will actually give you the definition and like, you'll learn something from Bing, damn it. I'm sorry.
I'm an Ask Jeeves man myself. But
this is where kids are learning. Yeah. Go on the internet and learn about sex. That'll work out great. And you'll learn, and everything you see is real, and it's exactly how it happens.
How to sex. Just type it in and you learn everything.
How to sex.
No, but like you're somewhat joking, but you're totally right. Now, think about what conservatives say they want, what their goals in the areas of sex and relationships and all that are. And now look at the effect of what they have done. Studies have demonstrated that comprehensive sexuality education programs reduce the rates of sexual activity. We know they don't want people boning. Sexual risk behaviors, the number of partners in unprotected intercourse, they supposedly are against all those things. Sexually transmitted infections, which they don't talk much about, but they use it to demonize sex in general. So you'd think they'd want it low. And adolescent pregnancy. So with what conservatives have done, what do you get? Well, supposedly you get more sex with more partners, including anonymous partners, less safe sex, more STIs, and more pregnancies.
Yep.
It seems counterproductive based on the goals they've set out. So why not? It's Florida.
The big crabs industry has definitely put its money into the GOP, and they're getting what they paid for. No, it's disgusting, and this is actually why same-sex couples and same-sex sex terrifies the right, because it is sex for pleasure. It is sex because you were in love, or you are attracted, or you like that person. It has nothing to do with procreation. And they hate that. And this is their goal, is to completely take away sex for pleasure. It doesn't exist. When you have sex, you have a baby and you get a whole lot of herpes, bro. And that's what it is. And hopefully you're 15. Yay, welcome to life. Like, this is their dream.
Welcome.
And final point. After Roe, you saw there was an increase of abortion, right? That people received abortions finally. But steadily, there has been a decrease in abortion. The same thing. You think that when you actually have comprehensive health care, sex ed, people actually have less sex if that is your goal. And it's true.
Makes sense. 100%. Okay, with that, let's broaden our scope a bit to the size of the Earth itself. Let's jump into this video.
The climate deniers are really in some ways similar to all of those almost 400 law enforcement officers in Uvalde, Texas, who were waiting outside an unlocked door while the children were being massacred. They heard the screams, they heard the gunshots, and nobody stepped forward.
That comparison, is this controversial? I think is the most reasonable thing in the world. It's like the most direct, obvious political metaphor that I've heard in a long time. And so you'll be shocked to find out that right-wingers are incensed by him saying that. They don't like him even popping up and reminding people that this is an area he's been working on for so long. And they are so angry about this. But we have more from Al Gore, so take a look.
Confronted with this global emergency, what we're doing with our inaction and failing to walk through the door and stop the killing is not typical of what we are capable of as human beings. We do have the solutions, and I think these extreme events that are getting steadily worse and more severe are really beginning to change minds.
I think so, very slowly, but I think that some people are beginning to understand. It is indisputable. You look out your window, you see how the climate is changing. Now, as I said, some are freaking out. The comments below one version of that video I saw on Twitter was filled with people saying that none of his predictions had turned out to be true. And many years after an inconvenient truth, there is no better evidence that there is climate change than there was then. Bear in mind, we're in the middle of a massive heat wave right now with record-breaking heat. We'll give you some of the numbers, but I just wanted to throw a little bit of my I like to keep track of how bad things are going. So Greenland lost enough ice over 3 days to put West Virginia under a foot of water. And I just want to give credit to that climate reporter for using that as the point of comparison. Because in theory, you could use any state.
Yes.
But they decided to use West Virginia. There's no references to Joe Manchin in the article, and yet there kind of is.
Yep.
So anyway, that's 6 billion tons of ice melted in just 3 days. Now that's specifically off of Greenland. We have now in this heat wave set or tied 359 daily high temperature records in just 1 week. 709 records for the warmest overnight low temperature. So nights not as cold as they were, but only in 709 places. New records, for instance, were set in Boston, which reached 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and Providence, which hit 96 degrees Fahrenheit. This has left 90 million Americans under heat warnings and advisories as of this weekend. And there were at least 2 heat-related deaths just in the Northeast on Sunday specifically, and officials are saying we'll find out about more inevitably because this always happens. It's just hotter and hotter for longer than it used to be. And with all of this evidence, Francesca, some still refuse to admit what's out there. They willingly put themselves in the position of those Uvalde cops.
Yes, Absolutely. And or they feed into inevitably, and we've talked about this, but climate doom, which I think is even more dangerous, and climate cynicism. It's even more dangerous than admitting that it actually exists. And that is saying, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. It's too late. No, it's not too late. There are millions and millions of lives that can be saved, to say nothing of the economy, if that is your number one goal. Yeah, it's better for the economy to stop climate change.
100%, indisputable. Okay, that is unfortunately all the time we have for our first hour. So everyone on the podcast, linear platforms, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're on Twitch, YouTube, the Numbers app, and a bunch of other places, we've got a lot more to get to. We'll be back in just a few.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.